Can you give us a summary of your educational background or your healthcare education?
I didn't go to college, but I did go to school long enough to learn how to read, so I can read the data for myself, and that's exactly what I've done.
And for what purpose do you conduct your research and use this brain of yours?
I use it for the purpose of trying to protect children from being castrated and mutilated.
You don't use it to get clicks?
Well, are you using it right now to try to get clicks with this interaction?
You know, if you're going to come before a committee and make mischaracterizations and misrepresentations, it's fair game for us to ask you your educational background.
Matt Walsh or anyone like him, when they're actually put in front of people who will challenge them, even Joe Rogan, because remember he went on Joe Rogan's interview and he was saying like millions of kids are being forced to undergo, sex transition surgeries and all of that stuff. And then Joe Rogan's editor was like, no, it's actually like less than 1,000. Like, it really doesn't happen very often. 1,000 in millions is quite a huge leap, but that's the whole point. Matt Walsh doesn't care about the facts. He doesn't care about the truth.
You seem to have started this, so you have no medical background, correct?
No.
You're trying to address good public policy, correct?
Yes.
I'll just have to question, some of your public policy. Singapore is able to have nice things in part because they execute drug dealers by hanging and arrest even petty vandals and thieves and beat them with a cane until they bleed. We don't have nice things here because we aren't willing to do what is required to maintain them. I kind of have to question your public policy beliefs.
I mean, look at all the videos that have come out with him in his car when he didn't have the beard. And he, was talking about how, is it really, really weird to have sex with a very young woman? Because back in the day, that was totally cool. Now, I'm not saying, and it's like, why even release a video like that? Because Matt Walsh is a very strange and weird person. That's why I release a video like that.
You also stated there'd been no studies. Well, I'm sitting here holding a study from the American Academy of Pediatrics, suicidal disparities between transgender and cisgender adults and children. Before you state things, you may need to know all the facts.
The notion that, I just care about the kids, I'm just looking out for the kids is ridiculous because first and foremost, this isn't an issue that impacts most children. The transgender community is an extreme minority in the country. But not only that, it's like, well, if you're so worried about protecting kids, then you would be concerned about strengthening social programs. You would be concerned about actually investing in the family structure instead of standing on pick yourself up by your bootstraps. And, if you're a single mother, it's your fault and blah, 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 blah. Always pointing the finger at people basically for not being wealthy and not being lucky. But, abortion, we can't let women have access to their own bodies. We can't let them have control over their own futures and their own fates because we care so much about the children. Even if that child's going to potentially be born into a situation where they'll be in poverty, even if that child was, conceived as a result of incest or rape, it doesn't matter. We got to keep the ball rolling. Because these people don't actually care about children whatsoever.
On your blog, at about 16, you're an adult who's mature and can make decisions. You're that at 16. I don't care what anybody says. Even going so far as to say when you're 16, you should be married and pregnant. 16 is an adult in your view. Why does this bill have minor defined as 18?
I was a radio host 13, 14 years ago in my early 20s. It's also not an accurate reflection of what I actually said. I was talking about the fact that people tended to marry young historically, and that's all that was about. How does that relate to this? To all of a sudden act like this phenomenon of girls getting pregnant at a young age that we consider young, 16 or 17, to act like it's a new thing is ridiculous. It's always been that way. Girls between the ages of like 17 and 24 is when they're technically most fertile. Recently, in the last 30 years or so, we decided that's way too young to start a family. So what I'm saying is that the problem is not per se teenage pregnancy, it's unwed pregnancy. That's the problem.
But unfortunately, this kind of rhetoric, even though we know that conservative pundits like Matt Walsh don't actually care about these issues, they actually lead to real world policies that damage the LGBTQ community in a variety of ways. The other day, we talked about how 9 GOP-led state legislatures are pushing to basically ban drag shows under the notion that we can't have the kids there. We can't have children there, even though, that's really not that big of an issue because for the most part, drag shows have alcohol in them, especially if it's an adult drag show. People are going and they're just kicking it and having fun. Of course, if you don't like that, you can just choose to not go. If you're a parent, you can just not take your kid to one of the shows. It's really not that complicated. You don't have to ban them, as we know. If you did, they would just, have them elsewhere. They'd just have them underground somewhere. They would just sneak them. You can't ban people from getting together and having a good time. But that's what the GOP agenda is, and that's what they're going to keep on doing.